Hey guys, this is Captain Cane Faircloth. I'm a 5th generation captain from North Carolina. We've been doing live reports for several years, kind of since the Facebook Live thing started coming out, and seems like people really like it. So I just wanted to kind of add a little twist to it and be able to share some of the stories and wild happenings that we've had and came across in our 16 years of charter fishing here out of Holden Beach, North Carolina. So tonight is the first episode, and I just wanted to kick off with a good one that was fun times, interesting, and anyways, let's begin. It was about, I'd say about 8 years ago or so, maybe 10. Captain Rick Gervette, who now works at the Rod and Reel shop, was working with me. Rick ran our smaller Sea Pro at 21, and I ran our larger blue water boat at the time. So anyways, Rick and I, we had a double boat trip at 12 o'clock. So I was sleeping in that day. We'd been running hard that summer. Rick and I were both running 4 trips a day. Sometimes we'd each run 3 trips a day. We were going really, really hard. And so we got into September. All the kids went back to school and things were, slowing down or whatnot, so we were getting a break. But we had a double boat trip that afternoon. It was a corporate trip who had booked us out, both boats or whatnot. So it's about 7:05 and my phone rings, and it's Captain Kevin Sneed from Rigged and Ready Charters. At the time, Kevin also was running really hard, him and Toby Fulford. So Kevin calls, and my phone rings at 7:05. I'm still in bed, but I'm awake. I pick it up, and he goes, "Hey man, if you've ever wanted to catch a king mackerel, now's the time to come out and catch one." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Bud, I was headed out the inlet, and a king mackerel has jumped and broken my antenna in half." He said, "They're jumping everywhere out here. Everybody's hooked up. You got to get out here. The bite is on fire." So that kind of sent me in a tailspin, kind of sent me into a panic, and I was like, "Oh my God." And so immediately I was like, when your friend calls you and he tells you the bite's on fire and if you can go fishing, you need to go fishing. So I called Captain Rick. I said, "Hey," I said, "what you doing?" He said, drinking coffee, stuff like that, getting ready. And I said, "Okay, well, hey, Kevin just called and he said that the king mackerel are going so bunkers that one has jumped and broken his antenna. So would you like to go out and do a little fun fishing for our charter?" What was going on was we were in September, and it was really, really, really calm, and there was a hurricane offshore. So anyways, kind of the calm before storm thing you'll hear or whatnot. So I start getting my stuff together. Rick, he's keeping the boat there on the river at his house, and I said, "Hey, we'll just take your boat, pick me up at the dock there at Captain Pete's." So Rick comes, picks me up. It's probably by this time, probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock, something like that, by the time we get all our stuff ready and start to head out. So the bite's been going on for about an hour or so. Anyways, we get in the boat. As we're coming out the inlet, I notice there's a lot, our charter fleet and maybe a couple fun fishermen who were in on the bite, where everybody was right at the drop off of the bar. Super glassy, light offshore winds, probably maybe a 2-foot groundswell, really tiny, not big enough to surf. Everybody's right at the drop off, and I look and I see Kevin's boat, and the antenna is broken in half, and I'm like, holy shit, he's telling the truth. He really, I think one has jumped and broke his antenna. And every boat there's probably 13 boats, 14 boats, and they're all hooked up, and I'm like, oh my God, it is on. And I'm looking, and there's all these big king mackerel just skying, right? Just airing it out. And then all of a sudden next, I see a big old tarpon airing it out. And I'm like, holy shit, what is going on out here? And then I see another big tarpon airing it out. And there's another king mackerel airing it out. And it's just all out, feeding frenzy blitz. So Rick and I, our hearts are just pumping really hard. We round the corner there, go over Holden Beach off the east end, and we see the pelicans diving, baits flipping, get the net, throw it, float the net. We got our pogies. We roll over there where everybody's at, start making a lap right down the bar. And so by then we're talking to our people, and they're like, yeah, they're right on the edge of the bar, right on the edge of the bar, about 14 feet of water. And so I guess what was going on at the time was we got hit by a hurricane a couple days later. So this really was the calm before the storm. And it was almost like every large king mackerel in Brunswick County and all the large tarpon that had been hanging out here for the summer had all diverged onto Lockwood Folly Inlet on that bar to feed and fatten up and build enough nutrients before that hurricane hit, like 2-3 days later. The weatherman, he wasn't, we were maybe in the cone or whatnot, but it wasn't like the weatherman was saying the storm was about to hit, yeah. But these fish knew that, and fish have an innate ability to be able to tell whenever a storm's about to hit, and they know before we do. So we rolled up in there with our bait. Fish are jumping everywhere. I mean, it's just crazy. I get out maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 lines, can't remember, but bam, we're hooked up. And man, this fish hits and it is running, man. This thing is screaming off. And I'm like, oh shit, we're about to be out of line. And so I get Rick up on the front of the boat, and he's got this king mackerel stretched way out. I'm driving the boat, and I'm looking, and like Kevin's hooked up, and Toby's over there hooked up, and it's just like it's on, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden I hear Toby say, oh, I've got a freaking big ass tarpon on. And I look and I see this giant tarpon. Man, this thing was like 250 pounds. Like, this dude is like tail walking, like going crazy, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh my God. And then next thing I know, like, Rick had like these really old reels that I don't know where he got them from. They're from the 60s, like these old pin reels. And I mean, these things were old school. I don't know if he got them from the rod and reel shop working there or whatnot, but these things were old school. They were in good shape. He had them fixed up nice, but they were old school, right? And I left, say, 2 baits out, and they were out behind the boat, and we were kind of rolling towards, I was trying to slowly work towards that king mackerel that was running offshore that Rick had on. And then next thing I know, I have this bait out, real close to the back of the boat, though. And all of a sudden, I hear like whoosh, like this water just whoosh, right? And I hear this weird noise, and I hear this reel making just this craziest noise. I never even heard a reel make this noise, kind of screech it was making. And I look, and all of a sudden, we've got like, okay, now we got a tarpon on. And this thing is big. Like, this thing is like 200 pounds big. We don't get small tarpon here usually. We catch a few, and they are the big ones. Like, they come here, they hammer out or whatever. I mean, these tarpon are really big. So Rick's fighting this king mackerel. It's stretched out, and I've got this tarpon on in the back, and this thing is massive. And I'm like, Rick, you got to do something. I was like, man, we're about to be in a bind because this king mackerel is running that way, and this big old tarpon is running that way. And this thing's like starting to tail walk and jump and stuff. So at this point, like, I am tripping. We've got a tarpon on, big king mackerel stretched out. I see Toby's got a tarpon on jumping. All the boats are hooked up, and big king mackerel are just scouting everywhere. Just going crazy. Everywhere. In like 13, 14, 12 feet of water. Just going bonkers. Unbelievable. Never seen anything like this before. So the tarpon, I think on like the 6th or 7th jump, he shook the hook, man. Them things got some funny mouths. He shook the hook. So anyway, we dealt with Rick's fish. We got over there, sunk the gaff in it, and it was nice. It weighed out at 34 pounds. And I watched Toby go offshore. Like, this big fish was pulling him offshore. And so we got our fish, and then it was like, okay, hey, we got to get ready for our charter. And I was kind of watching Toby, talking to him on the radio and stuff. And I guess Toby was, his tarpon, he could get it close to the boat, but it was so big that he could not hand line it in or really get his anglers to work with it to get it close enough to where they could actually get a hold of it, maybe get a scale off of it, get a picture or whatnot. He had that fish on for a while, like hour or so. And when I was talking to him, I mean, I saw the fish he had on. I know I had a really big fish on, and I know Toby's was way bigger than mine. So there's no telling how big it was. It was just busting over the 200-pound mark, which was pretty impressive. But anyways, then me and Rick rolled in. We got our people, rolled back out. I think Rick tried to king mackerel fish again, but the bite was over, tide had changed, things like that. But we rolled out. I went down off of Oak Island, and man, first bait pot I found, we fired down a couple of those pogies, and we were just quadrupled up with the big bull drum. and we commenced to just smacking the big bull drum for the next 4 hours. Those guys, their arms were worn slap out. I called Rick. He came down. I think he got into some of the action too. But that was a magical day, and I guess what was going on was we had that hurricane was offshore. It was about to hit, and then all these big fish got the memo. They knew what was up, and it produced the best bite. One of the best bites I've ever seen near shore here in Holden Beach. Probably the best bite I've ever seen near shore here in Holden Beach. It was definitely a magical time and a magical day. So just kind of keep that in mind. Chronicles, episode 1. We're going to try to share a few fishing stories with you guys over the next little bit and pass them down, and maybe you can pass them down to a couple generations or whatnot so that it's not lost. But when you get that calm before the storm, the bite can go crazy. My friends who run the grouper snapper boats over the years, they said some of the bites they've experienced too have been just absolutely insane with the fish chewing. It's something that you want to be really smart about, because you don't want to be that crew that gets caught offshore when the hurricane hits. That's going to equal death. Not many people survive that. But if you can do something fun near shore, even in the backwater, right before the storm hits, it's classic. It's a good time. Scoot out there and have some fun, and then scoot back in safely before it hits, get everything stowed away, and batten down the hatches. But I'm Captain Cane Faircloth. This was our Fishing Chronicles episode 1. Hope you enjoyed the story. Maybe you learned something from it. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, share it. We're also too going to upload this on the Ollie Realty YouTube channel that we have. So hope everybody has a good night, and we'll see you later.